There are a lot of different ways to charge customers. It's important to choose an effective strategy and to test it with customers. We'll walk through some of the options to think about in this video. Hi, I'm Steve Morris, and I use this Startup SOS channel to provide practical how-to advice for first-time entrepreneurs. Topic today, revenue streams and the hypotheses that you have to document in your business model canvas so that you can test them. So we're walking through the different sections of the canvas, and we're tackling in this video the last section on the right side, sort of the customer/revenue focused side of the canvas on revenue streams. So the questions to ask when you think about revenue streams are: how will you charge? Who will you charge? How will you decide on the price? And then, of course, what is your price? Four very important questions to think about. We'll walk through them one by one. So first of all, how will you charge? Well, three basic approaches to charging. You could do a one-time fee, or you can do some kind of a recurring fee. Now, beyond the charge for the product itself, there's always customer support to think about. You may have a support contract, which would be probably a recurring fee over time. So those were the categories of charging. Let's walk through some actual approaches. Well, the most obvious one perhaps is the asset sale. You're selling a physical product. Or maybe it's some kind of a usage fee. In other words, depending on how much the customer uses the product, they pay more or less. Think in terms of your cell phone bill. The more minutes you use, the more you pay. Or a subscription service, very common model for a lot of software products. Or there's the renting and leasing model. There's a licensing model where you sell a license to a user. That may involve an upfront fee as well as a recurring fee, or just an upfront fee, or just a recurring fee. Lots of options. There's a brokerage fee where you charge some kind of a fee or a commission for transactions to the customer. And of course, selling advertising is another approach for charging the customer. The other question is, who will you charge? In a multi-sided market, sometimes there are some choices to be made. For example, consider the freemium model, where a lot, probably the majority of your users aren't paying anything at all, but a minority of users pay for an upgrade to some premium type capabilities. Okay, that's sort of a two-sided market. You have free users and users who are willing to pay. You can also have other types of multi-sided markets where you have users, versus, say, advertisers. Consider, for example, your typical social media company, where you have users who pay nothing versus advertisers who pay for advertising. So again, it's a multi-sided market. The question is, in your market, who should you charge? Is it a multi-sided market where you need to think through actually what's the right customer strategy in terms of who pays? Next question, how will you price? There's, of course, fixed pricing approaches, and then there are dynamic pricing approaches. Let's walk through some examples. On the fixed pricing approach, of course, you could have just a standard list price for the product. Here's what it is. Or maybe your product has a lot of options. Consider like configuring a laptop where you can have more memory, more disk space, faster processor. So it's more of a feature-based pricing. You sort of configure your solution and add up the price. There's customer segment pricing. You could have different prices for different customer segments. Think in terms of on airlines, first class versus coach. Yeah, they're getting a little bit different service, more amenities in first class versus coach. On the other hand, they're basically getting flown from point A to point B, and the overall cost involved isn't that much different, but they all certainly pay a very different price. And then, of course, there's volume pricing. You may be in a situation where, especially in a B2B market, you can sell larger volumes to some customers, and that can drive down your costs, make you more efficient. So you may offer lower per unit prices to customers that buy in volume. Then there are different approaches to dynamic pricing. Pricing might be negotiation-based. Now, you probably still need some guidelines so that you're not going to sell too much product below what it costs you, but still, negotiation is one approach. Time and availability is a different approach. Think hotels. When you get up to the last minute and you have hotel rooms available, you might want to lower the price and try to get those sold because it's good to have some revenue versus none. Another one would be real-time supply and demand-based pricing. For example, some electricity markets in the US where when electricity is in high demand, the price goes up. And when it's in low demand, the price is lower. And then, of course, there's an auction approach to pricing. So a lot of different ways to have a more dynamic approach to pricing your product. So a lot of things to think about. How will you charge? Who will you charge? How will you determine the price, the approach? And then what is your actual price? We haven't tackled that one yet. Lots of things to think about. So how do you decide the answers to all of those questions? Well, first of all, it's good to understand how customers want to pay when you're choosing an approach to how you're going to charge customers. You clearly want to use an approach that makes sense to customers, that's acceptable to customers. You want to think about your competitive differentiation. What exactly is the competition's pricing? How do you compare to the competition? Frankly, if you're delivering more value, you might not want to underprice the competition. Your price might be higher, but you certainly need to think about the competition and your competitive strategy. Your overall positioning strategy is important to think about. Are you positioning as a premium product or as a low-cost product? Obviously, that can affect your thinking on pricing. Your cost structure clearly is important. Your price needs to be set at a price that will cover your costs and deliver, hopefully, some profit. So cost is important to look at. And then perceived value. How much are customers willing to pay? What price makes sense to them once they understand the value you're delivering? Now, that's a conversation in and of itself we'll put off to another video, but there are some ways to figure out what people are willing to pay. Asking them how much they're willing to pay generally is not one of the better approaches, but we'll tackle that one later. So that's our discussion of revenue streams. Your action plan, fill out your revenue stream section to the canvas. How will you charge? Who will you charge? How will you price? And what is the price that you believe is the right price? Again, these are all hypotheses that you're going to go check when you talk to customers. That's our discussion of revenue streams. If this was helpful, please click the like button and share it, and leave a comment if you have any feedback or questions. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button and then click the notification bell so you'll find out when we have new videos coming out. And remember, this is one of a series of videos. We're walking through every section of the canvas, and there's a link to the entire playlist right below me, so please check that out. And thank you very much for watching.